Once upon a time, in a land called Hong Kong, two left-out petals found themselves in a land called Hong Kong. They were here for 4 days before they got blown away by the wind again. And this is how their time here went. We started the day with dim sum. One cannot start a trip in Hong Kong without dim sum, was what we told ourselves in the morning as we tried to decide on what to eat. So we headed to a dim sum place close to the place we were staying at, called Ding Dim 1968. Our first stop after breakfast was Tai Kwun, the Center of Arts and Heritage, also home to Victoria Gaol, Hong Kong's first prison. This complex of historic buildings was occupied with both educational and recreational spaces, such as B Hall and D Hall, filled with voices of former inmates and correctional service officers. And then there was E Hall, home to a modern cafe called On the Hill Coffee Bar, where we got to sit in one of the cells to enjoy a fancy latte. And then walked around the entire Soho neighborhood, wandering into the shops and streets that pulled us in. Before coming to Hong Kong, I had no idea what I was supposed to expect here. I've seen pictures of my friends eating dim sum and wonton noodles, or posing at the Peak. But in terms of the lives of a local or the average street, it was all up to my imagination in conjunction with the vlogs I found here on YouTube. So actually walking up and down the hills and the roads felt surreal. I was actually here. Heading off to Manmo Temple after getting our egg tart. It was very tasty. Satiated, we stepped away from modern Hong Kong and into the city's past, towards the Manmo Temple, devoted to both the god of literature and martial arts. The place locals go to when hoping to ace an exam or solve conflict. There was a street called Upper Lascar Row, right by the temple, which was filled with antique shops. So we ventured into it and also said hi to a couple of new furry friends. The Sun Yat-sen Memorial Park was created to commemorate, well, Sun Yat-sen, the leader of Kuomintang, and the father of modern China. According to their website, he was forced out of Hong Kong due to his leading role in the Chinese Revolution, so this location used to be where he would meet his friends and supporters who brought a boat. And then we tried to get to the peak, but had a very difficult time finding the bus stop. But it was a blessing in disguise because we happened to walk through two major parks in the area while going in circles trying to find the bus station. We were finally here, overlooking the warm glow leaking from bedrooms and office windows, reminding us of all the lives that intertwine in this bustling city. While I was at the planetarium the other day, the staff mentioned that it's physically impossible for us to be sad when we look up. There is so much beauty above us that we don't often bother or remember to look up at as we go about our busy lives, and this view reminded me of that. There might be a shooting star giving us light as we go through our toughest times, and we may never know. So I guess this was a reminder to myself as well, of all the light that shines during our darkest times. But first, coffee and pastries at the parade ground in Tai Kwun. Wong Tai Sin Temple is home to 3 religions, Taoism, Buddhism, and Confucianism, and pays tribute to the famous monk Wong Tai Sin, also called the Great Immortal Wong, who was a deity known to possess the power of healing. Hence, people would come to have their prayers answered or their fortunes told. Right beside the temple was a beautiful garden called Good Wish Garden. The name is said to come from a passage in the Analects of Confucius that goes, "At 70, I could follow what my heart desired without transgressing what was right." I'm not too sure whether this means all visitors to the garden attain the wisdom of 70, or that we too should live as our heart desires, just as one would at 70. But, regardless, a walk in the serene garden was exactly what I needed to refresh before resuming my exploration. I'm currently walking over to the Kowloon walled city park from the temple. Really hot today, but the perfect weather to be exploring because it's really sunny. Once serving as a Chinese command center, the Kowloon Walled City Park is now a Jiannan-style garden. It had once been notorious as a semi-lawless enclave, which inevitably caused this place to become the native land for all kinds of criminal activities, further diverging from the prosperity the rest of the nation was experiencing. So, in 1987, plans to demolish the walled city were announced, and the Kowloon Walled City Park that we see today was completed in August 1995. Today, we can still see models of the buildings that once stood, as well as images and exhibitions of the daily lives that once took place here. It's crazy to think that there was an entire city that once existed here. A city of customs and stories that we will never see again. My brain and mind decided to stop working after packing them with fascinating history, so we headed over to the West Kowloon Art Park for lunch before an evening at the M Plus Museum.
Well, the truth always comes out. Now yours has through someone else's mouth, and right now I can't move on. You're telling yourself it's to protect me, so you hid away a crucial part of me.
These are American cities of 25 and 30 years ago. They are without green space, without open space, without green space. The city's going to change. They're going to be renewed. What is needed are men with imagination.
The exhibition was on the celebrated architect Liu Ming-pei behind the architecture firm I Am Pei. As someone who derives so much joy from walking around cities and observing buildings, learning about the visions and thoughts that went behind the world's most iconic spaces and buildings was nothing but absolutely compelling. Following the exhibitions and displays, we headed out to the roof garden, where we gazed at the sunset with a view of Hong Kong Island and the many boats that surround it. I asked a friend whether she thinks AI could fully replace artists one day, and she replied, "Not really, because art is another means of communication, and the meaning behind each piece of art lies in the intentions and perspectives of each artist. So although the final product of art may be easily replaced or replicated, it will never be the same as the one that was created from the heart of an individual. Just like how our phones and computers can easily speak words, it doesn't replace the feeling of connection that we develop when we spend time having a conversation with another person. It's not the question of whether the robot or machine can recite the exact words one says. It's the feeling of belonging or connecting when you realize the person on the other end feels the same way or went through something similar. We decided to walk through the ladies' market on our way to dinner, a market that used to sell items for women. Today, they sell goods ranging from cheap electronics and clothes to even souvenirs. We finished the day with a ferry ride from Kowloon back to Hong Kong Island. And enjoyed the views from a Ferris wheel that appeared right where we landed. But first, Tsim Chai Kee Noodle to fuel our bodies with tasty wonton noodles.
You make me nervous, not in a bad way. Here's to bed
Sai Kung has been home to fishermen since the 14th century and has since gone from a landscape of vessels bobbing in sheltered inlets to the urban scenery we see today. Many seafood restaurants around Hong Kong source their seafood from this village, while locals and tourists will come here to enjoy water activities such as snorkeling and surfing while devouring seafood at the many restaurants that line up along the shore. I had no idea while I was there, but an old gentleman on the bus back informed me that many people had mysteriously disappeared on the northeast side of Sai Kung, and that the area is believed to be home to an entrance leading to another dimension. So of course I had to look it up, and it seems like there had been an instance where a police officer called to report that he was lost and was seeking help, only to realize that his coordinates didn't exist. This on top of other incidents, such as strange phone calls from hikers or unfound bodies, had many speculating that there was something off, either bad feng shui or even a spirit that was making so many people disappear. Although, it may also be that the hiking trails are simply too dangerous and way too deep into nature for all these hikers to go to. After getting back to Hong Kong Island, we took an MTR to Tin House Station and visited Victoria Park in Causeway Bay. This park was built on reclaimed land from a former typhoon shelter for fishing boats, and according to my friend, it's a popular exercise spot for many locals with a range of activity spaces to choose from, including tennis courts, basketball courts, and even a swimming pool. For dinner, we had a beef brisket noodle soup from a restaurant called Sister Wa Beef Brisket, and the soup was so clear and light, yet filled with flavor from the beef, and I could easily finish 2 huge bowls of the soup on its own. We then headed back to Soho on a tram through neighborhoods and streets I couldn't name. And then walked around the neighborhood at night, exploring the streets, as well as the McDonald's and the supermarket, which were the only 2 shops left open at that time. And the uninvited last day had come. Our last day in Hong Kong, and our last day before we go back to reality. We had two things we hadn't crossed off our list: crispy pork or goose and pineapple buns. And we had until 2 p.m. to find them. So, we found places to eat them and walked around the shops and streets of Causeway Bay. And that's a wrap to our 4-day trip to Hong Kong. If you stayed with us until this point, thank you so much for watching and coming along with us. And see you very, very soon in Japan.